Alright, let's try this again. So this is the, I think, like 11th time I've tried recording this video. I've just been having a terrible time of it. But today we're going to be talking about Dash. So I hope you're interested in Dash, because I sure as heck am. She's a very fun hero. The reason I'm making this video, and I've wanted to make this video for quite a while. Also, I apologize if my voice sounds weird. I've been talking for like literally several hours and my voice is starting to go. But the reason I'm making this video now, which I wanted to make it for a while, is because Jason Zhang, or Shang, I'm so sorry if I'm butchering your name, actually just won the Calling Singapore with Dash. So I'll include both his list as well as the list we're going to be looking at today, which is my updated list, in the comments down below, or sorry, in the description, rather. But yeah, I mean, the deck is pretty similar, all things considered. I see a couple standout cards that are different. He's running Crown of Providence, where I'm running Arcanite Skullcap. I think that's up to personal preference. I think both cards are very viable in Dash. Arcanite Skullcap gives you one additional block, which is not to be understated. It's very important that you have blocking equipment, especially in an aggro deck like Dash. But Crown of Providence does give you pretty good hand fixing. So if you have, like, you know, 3 or 4 pieces out of your like crazy combo. So for instance, one of the big kind of like combos that Dash is capable of is maximum velocity with 3 other boost cards. So if you have like maximum velocity in Arsenal, for instance, and you have 2 0-60s or 2 T-bones, and you really need that one more boost card to pull off this massive, 30 damage turn. You can block with Crown of Providence, swap your card out, and hope for the best. But I personally think that Arcanite Skullcap is more consistent. The Crown of Providence, I think, encourages you to block inefficiently. A lot of times when I block with equipment, I choose to only block the important on-hit abilities. So things like Herald of Erudition, or like any card that says like draw a card on hit for your opponent, or like if this hits it gains go again, or does this or that. Stuff like that is very important to block. And that's kind of all I block most of the time playing Dash, because you're probably going to outdamage your opponent most of the time. Of course, things like the Ninja Mask of Momentum. Mask of Momentum triggers are important to mitigate as well, and those are usually like low attacks, like Kodachis or Phoenix Flames or something, so you can usually block with like the 1 extra block off of Arcanite, for instance. So things like that are important to block, and that's kind of what your equipment's going to be here for. But aside from that, your kind of loadout, your core loadout, is going to be relatively the same for every matchup. You're always going to run Achilles Accelerator, and you're always going to run Tecla Foundry Heart. There are no cards as of right now that outclass these in their respective slots for Dash. I don't know. Tecla Foundry Heart is, the only legendary that we use here, aside from your headpiece, which, I mean, if you've been playing Flesh and Blood for a little while, hopefully you'll have either Skullcap or Crown of Providence. But if you do not, Visiertronic Model I is good for kind of utility. We also have this in here for you can run it against wizards. You can get it's really easy to get a full Arcane Barrier 4 against wizard. You run this headpiece, you run your Achilles Accelerator, and you run Null Rune Gloves. Your accelerators have Arcane Barrier 1. So it is important, if you're afraid of like a Rune Blade dealing incredible amounts of arcane damage to you, you might want to bring in the Null Rune Gloves as well as the boots, just because you're going to probably pop these boots at some point, and then you're not going to have any Arcane Barrier, So that's something to consider. Your gloves, Goliath Gauntlet is what I use. Let me see what Jason uses. Okay, yeah, he uses Goliath Gauntlet as well. Yeah, I think his... Oh, he actually has Talishar in here? Really? Okay, that's interesting. So he's running, instead of the Plasma Barrel Shot, he's running Talishar, which is, I mean, that makes sense. because you get four attacks. I mean, I like Plasma Barrel Shot, but I understand, Talshar is good because you can attack even if, for instance, if you if you don't boost in a turn, your barrel shot's going to be 2 for 1, right? So Talshar might actually be a pretty good swap for the barrel shot. We'll have to play test with that, but yeah, your gauntlets are going to be Goliath gauntlets. These are only here because there's not really a better option, honestly and truly. You're going to use these pretty much only either if you have a dominated attack that's going to kill your opponent and you can add +2 damage to ensure it goes through. But most of the time it's going to be used for Combustible Courier and Pedal to the Metal. These kind of on-hit attacks that cost 2 or more. So your Combustible Courier on hit is going to give your next attack +3. So you're switching this from a 4 for 2 to a 6 for 2 with the Goliath Gauntlet, and then on hit it's going to give your next attack +3. So that's kind of 9 for 2 if you consider it that way. And then your Pedal to the Metal gives your next attack Dominate, which is actually pretty interesting. I included the ones that hit for 4 here because 4 is a good breakpoint because it's very hard to block 4 damage, right, with just 1 card. You either have to block it with 2 cards from hand, a fence reaction, or a card from hand and a piece of equipment. So the Dominate on your next attack on Pedal to the Metal is pretty cool because you can actually give your pistols Dominate, which is interesting. I don't know that I've ever actually used that, but I mean, you can. High Speed Impact gives your next attack you boost Dominate. So that's where those two differ. Differ is Pedal to the Metal costs more, deals more damage, but also gives your weapon attacks Dominate. So I mean, if you hit with Pedal to the Metal and you're running Talshar, you can give Talshar Dominate. It's pretty cool, but you're really just using that +2 to kind of try to push those attacks over the edge. If for sideboarding for your arms, I have the Null Rune Gloves like we talked about with Wizard, as well as if you're afraid of the arcane damage coming out of a Rune Blade and you plan on using your legs, you might want to include these. I mean, you kind of have to think about it like this: are you going to mitigate more damage with the Null Rune Gloves compared to the damage you're going to actually be able to kind of force with Goliath Gauntlet? So you can kind of think of Goliath Gauntlet as like 5 damage, for instance, because +2 from the card and then the +3 from Combustible Courier. That's what I usually use the Goliath Gauntlet on. So basically, are you going to be able to block at least 5 damage with Null Rune Gloves? If so, maybe consider swapping them. But most of the time you're going to run this against non-arcane damage. Ironhide Gauntlets are here mostly for I put them in for Prism because Herald of Your Edition has Dominate and it's 5 attack. So if you notice, I think actually every card other than the items has 3 block. That is a Mechanologist card, which your core deck, what I consider your core deck, does not have any non-Mechanologist cards in it. But everything is not an item has 3 block. So basically, with 3 block from 1 blocking card and then the Ironhide Gauntlets, you're going to be able to block that 5 damage from Herald of Your Edition. It was also here for some of the on-hit stuff from Starvo. But since Starvo's gone, I might consider swapping this out because you have the Tecla Foundry Heart and your Skullcap probably to cover up those Herald of Your Editions from Prism. Plus, Prism's going to be gone pretty soon as well. Once Prism rotates out, I can definitely see the case for pulling that card and putting something else in. But your glove slot is your weakest slot for sure as a Mechanologist. The Plasma Barrel Shot, it's mostly just here for decks where you're not going to be able to get a whole lot of pistol attacks. So one thing to note, if you're unfamiliar with playing Mechanologists, or if you're just new to the game or want to know how kind of combat chains work. So if you play or activate a non-attack action, it breaks the combat chain. So when you're going up against Guardians that have access to the Rampart of the Ram's Head, you're going to want to make note of that when playing your pistols, because every time you reload the pistol, so basically you attack, that is an attack action, so that does not break the combat chain. But things like high octane, which is just an action, will break it. Any items breaks the combat chain. Putting counters on things breaks the combat chain. So basically, if you attack, react, and give your pistol go again, when you reload the pistol, it breaks the combat chain. So if they have Rampart of the Ram's Head and you have a 2-attack pistol, for instance, they can essentially mitigate 3 attacks for 2 resources, right? So just be careful of that. The plasma barrel shot, I would honestly really only run it against the new, or the old Bravo, sorry, not Starvo, but Bravo Showstopper, because against Oldham, you're probably going to want to run the kind of control package, or the, I guess, anti-fatigue package. So Induction Chamber, we have 1 in the main board, 1 in the sideboard, and then 3 plasma purifiers. Induction Chamber, like I was just saying, you can give your pistols go again. Honestly, a lot of times I like to start with Induction Chamber as my item, but Tecla Pounder, since it came out, has really been my go-to as far as starting item for Dash. So if you're unfamiliar with Dash's hero ability, she says you get to start with a Mechanologist item card with cost 2 or less in the arena. So like I said, most of the time, Induction Chamber or Tecla Pounder, depending on which strategy you're going for. Usually I would recommend Tecla Pounder just because it's effectively 6 damage across 3 different turns. You can use it in combination with the Goliath Gauntlet, or even without the Goliath Gauntlet, to give your on-hit cards, higher damage to make them more awkward to block. But your Plasma Purifiers and your Induction Chambers, I would really only run those against Oldham or any other deck that you think is going to try to fatigue you out, because with Boost, you're going to be running through your deck really quickly. So we'll go over Boost real quick in case you're unfamiliar with that. Basically, it's an additional cost to play the card. So you have to announce and then perform the Boost action as you play the card, because it's an additional cost to play the card. It is a may, so you don't have to boost. So if you don't have any intentions of performing another action after you attack with the card, don't boost. But if you do, make sure that you boost as you play the card. You can't wait until they decide to block and then boost, if that makes sense. But basically, it says you banish the top card of your deck. If it's a Mechanologist card, then you gain go again on the attack. If it's not, you don't. Now, it is important to note you still have boosted. So anything that references when you boost, even if you miss, you still get to perform these things. So like High Octane says, whenever you boost a card this turn, gain 1 action point. So this is important. If you, for instance, boost Combustible Courier and you hit Fate Foreseen, you do not gain the action point back from boost, but you gain an action point from High Octane. And this is also true in the opposite case. So if you do hit, so say you hit Convection Amplifier or another Mechanologist card, you gain an action point from the boost, but you also gain an additional action point from High Octane. And this is also true of the Achilles Accelerator. So it says instant destroy Achilles Accelerator, gain 1 action point, activate only if you have boosted this turn. So performing the action of boost is all that's required. You do not have to have hit a Mechanologist card for these abilities, which is important and just something I thought I would mention here. But I mean, yeah, that's pretty much the kind of rundown of how to get started playing Dash. But we can go ahead and talk about some of these other cards real quick. Your Tecla Foundry Heart says once per turn action. Notice this is an action, so this will break your combat chain as well. Banish the top 2 cards of your deck and gain 1 resource for each Mechanologist card banished this way. Activate it only if you've boosted this turn. So this doesn't say boosted this combat chain, it says boosted this turn. So most of the things say this turn, so you don't have to worry about, your combat chain being all wonky or whatever. But it's very important for kind of turning a red card into a yellow card, more or less. Because if you notice, there are a lot of things that cost 2 resources, like Throttle, Combustible Courier, Pedal to the Metal, a lot of your items, Maximum Velocity, all that fun stuff is going to cost 2 resources. Magnetic, 2 resources is kind of a really important number for Mechanologists. But you can also use it to reload your pistol twice if you have your Induction Chambers on the field. Combustible Courier we've already touched on that. Convection Amplifier is kind of a hot take. This is a card that I put in here that I don't see a lot of other people put in here, but I've had great success playing it. It is an item, so it does take your action point, unless you have more than one due to like High Octane or Achilles Accelerator. But it enters the battlefield with 2 counters on it, and you don't have to, but you may perform an action of removing a counter, and then your next attack action card you play this turn gets Dominate. So this is good early because you can give Combustible Courier and some of these other important on-hit cards Dominate. And it's great later for closing out the game. A lot of times games go to like 1-1 or like 3-5, something very low, and you can give something big like a red throttle or something Dominate and kind of close out the games with that. You have a couple other ways of gaining Dominate on your attacks. High Speed Impact is the red is a 1-for-4, and when it hits your next attack, you boost this combat chain. This is important, this combat chain. So if you hit with a red high speed impact, and then like activate Tecla Foundry hard, or activate High Octane, play an item, put a counter on your pistol, anything like that, you lose this on hit effect. So make sure you sequence this correctly. But your next attack you boost on the combat chain gains Dominate. So this is important. You can gain Dominate on attack action cards. Unfortunately, most of the time it's going to be like a high speed impact into like a 0-for-60 or something. It's not going to be super important, but occasionally you'll get a high speed impact into like a red throttle, for instance. Red throttle is kind of the one that you want your Dominate to go on to, or maximum velocity if you can get that. Good lord. But aside from the rest of these kind of 2+ attacks, so red throttle is, like I said, 2-for-6. The blues are 2-for-4s. Most of the time you're going to be pitching all these blues, cycling them through, and then at the end when you have nothing but blues, you're going to rely on your pistol a lot to fire off a bunch of rounds, kind of turning your resources, your blues, into damage with your Induction Chambers and Plasma Purifiers. T-Bone and 0-to-60 are 0-cost boost cards, so it's basically 0-cost, go again. 0-to-60s, the reds are 4 damage, the blues are 2s, and the yellows are 3s. T-Bone, the whole rainbow I have here as well, but they are statted 1 less, and for that 1 damage reduction, you get, if a card you control in the combat chain was boosted, a defending hero must defend T-Bone with an equipment they control if able. This does count itself. So, if you T-Bone 4 times, they have to block with all 4 of their equipment. If you T-Bone twice, you can also follow that up with Magnetic Shockwave, where the defending hero must defend this card with X equipment they control, where X is the number of times you have boosted this combat chain. So you're just trying to hit that magic number to get them to block with something that has Blade Break, like Mask of Momentum, I believe. No, does it? I think it does. Mask of Momentum, Fandal Spring Tunic, a lot of the cool kind of core cards that have Blade Break, or it's not Temper. Is it Temper? I think it is. Temper is the one where if it has 0 counters on it, you destroy it. So like Blood Sheath, Skeletta, stuff like that. These guys are good at kind of removing. But your red T-Bones are still 0-for-3 boost. It's good. Very, very well statted for hyper aggro stuff. Zipper hits are 1-for-5 for your reds. And of course, all these things with boost, you're effectively going to think that they have go again every turn. You do have to be careful. Don't just boost willy-nilly if you have a bunch of non-mechanologist cards in your deck. You have to be kind of more considerate about it. You have to think about sequence things. So like, put any counters on stuff before you boost. Just think about the fact that you may not have an additional action point after this attack resolves. Pedal to the Metal, like I said, gives your next attack Dominate, so you can dominate your weapons. Spark of Genius is a really fun card. It's a yellow pitch. Its cost is XX, and it says, search your deck for a Mechanologist item card with cost X, put it into the arena, and then shuffle your deck. If you've boosted this turn, draw a card. Now this does take your action point, unless you have like High Octane or something that gains your additional action point. But it's pretty cool as kind of like an end to your turn, so you can put something in Arsenal, for instance. What I usually fetch with Spark of Genius almost every single time is your Tecla cores, because it costs 0. So you can pay 0 into this. Put Tecla Core in the arena, and if you've boosted, draw a card. So that's pretty good for 0 cost. You basically, for 0 cost, draw 2, kind of. And then, it's really good. Tecla Core is really cool. It enters with 2 steam counters on it, and then at the beginning of each of your turns, you effectively just get 2 resources. And like I said, 2 resources is an important number for mechanologists. So, Maximum Velocity. This is a card that is very hard to play, but it's very good. I only run 1. Looks like Jason was running 3. Play as many of these as you want. Heck, maybe I'll cut the Ironhide Gauntlet and put another one of these in. I don't know. I never really have luck with Maximum Velocity, but if you can get it to pull, if you can pull it off, I mean, you're going to be doing 20, 30 damage in a turn. You know, it's very, very good stats for the card, but most of the time I end up blocking with it because it blocks for 3. But if you can boost 3 times in a turn, and if you have Tecla Core, so if you have, for instance, Maximum Velocity and then 3 of either 0 to 60 or T-Bone in hand, you can and your Tecla Core on field, you can boost 3 times and then use your 2 resources to pay for Maximum Velocity, or if you have 1 of the 1 cost and 2 of the 0s, you can pay 1 into Zipper Hit or whatever, and then the other 1 into Tecla Foundry Heart and turn that into 2 to hit with Maximum Velocity. There's a lot of cool ways you can get this across. It's not super reliant, in my opinion, so it's kind of hard for me to recommend running 3 of them. But if you have success with it, by all means, go for it. Payload is a good finisher card. It's 2 for 6. It does not have does not have boost. But if you have boosted this combat chain, it gains Dominate. So this is a good finisher. I only run 1, but it's good for just ending the game just outright because 6 with Dominate is pretty hard to block when you're at the end and you don't have a whole lot of equipment left to block. And then the Tecla Pounders, like we've talked about, it enters the arena with 3 steam counters on it, and then whenever you boost an attack action card, essentially it's a once per turn effect. So the first time you boost every turn while this is on the field, you remove a counter, and then that attack gains +2, which is good in combination with Combustible Courier, but you can also use it in combination with 0 to 60. So with this on the field, 0 to 60 red is a 0 for 6 with Go Again, or 6 for 0 with Go Again. That's pretty good. We run our usual Fate for Scenes and Sink Belows. Fate for Scenes are good for opting to make sure you're not going to blow away your non-mechanologist cards when you boost next turn. Vizortronic Model I is only here for Wizard because it has Arcane Barrier 2. You're probably never going to use this action. It's just Arcane Barrier 2 is really good value-wise for the card slot. And then No Rune Gloves are here for Wizards, so you can get Arcane Barrier 4 between the Model I, the Gloves, and the Achilles Accelerator. And also for Rune Blades, if you plan on blowing up your Achilles Accelerator, you're going to want your No Rune Gloves to keep that Arcane Barrier after you blow up your feet. Signal Jammer. This is good for Wizards again. It's good for both Wizards. It's good for Icelander and Kano because each hero can't play more than 1 non-attack action card each turn. This does include non-attack action cards played at instant speed. They are still considered playing non-attack action cards. They're not considered as being played as instants. They are still non-attack action cards. They are just moved up to instant speed. So Kano can only play one card, and it enters with 1 counter on it. And then at the beginning of your action phase, you destroy the card unless you remove a steam counter from it. So you can play this on your turn, shutting off their ability to play more than 1 card on your turn. And then on their turn, they can only play 1 card as well. So it's good, but very, very niche. And then, of course, like Briar and a couple other heroes care about playing more than 1 non-attack action. Your Rune Blades, mostly. So, you have to kind of know your meta to figure out which decks to bring that in, but I would recommend probably exclusively Wizards for the most part. Unmovables are here for your Guardians. I put the yellows in because 7 is a good breakpoint. You're going to arsenal these if you can, so that you can get the 7 block as well as being able to block some additional cards. So Crippling Crush is 11 attack if they are able to give it Dominate. So that's going to be 7 from Arsenal, so then you'll be able to block with 1 card from hand and then 1 damage worth of equipment. So probably your Tecla, Foundry, Heart, or your Skullcap. And then you save yourself from being whacked with the Crippling Crush. We've talked about these. Dissolution Sphere. This card is amazing. This is one of my favorite cards. It does cost 2, so it's kind of difficult to play around. But it enters with 1 Steam counter, and at the beginning of your action phase, you remove a Steam counter, and if you can't remove a Steam counter, you destroy it. But whenever your hero will be dealt exactly 1 damage, you prevent it. This is amazing because it's good against all rune chants, mitigates those. It's good against. So if your opponent has like a snatch or something that's coming in for 4 damage, you block with 3 from hand. Now your hero is only going to be dealt 1 damage, mitigated instantly. It's just so good. Like, it's so much value. The only problem is you only get 2 turns with it active, so you have to really consider when to play it. It was really good back when OTK Viserai was a thing, because you could just absolutely burn his entire stack of rune chants to nothing. But this card is just so fun to play with. It covers up breakpoints so well. It can really turn things really in your favor a lot of times. But once again, a very difficult card to play around because you have to know when to play it, when to how to block around it. Like for instance, if your opponent is swinging in with a Rosetta Thorn, you can pitch 1 to pay for the arcane damage. Since it's an instance of 2, now you're fully blocking it by paying 1. You can block 1, like if you have 1 block left on your Skullcap or something, you can block the physical 2 damage with 1 block, and then you block both of it. So with effectively 2 block worth of things, you're blocking 4 damage. It's just hyper value intensive. So I love this card. But that's kind of a breakdown of Dash. It's a little long-winded. I'm sorry. I just get very excited to talk about this hero. So if you have any questions or concerns, let me know down below. I appreciate you for watching this video. If you have, I'm gonna try to break down some different topics and stuff and put the time codes in the description so that you guys don't have to watch the whole thing. But I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Please let me know any other heroes you want me to talk about. I was talking to this guy. He's an Italian Azalea player. Very, very good. Beat the crap out of me on a Viserai deck I was testing. And I played him on Flesh and Blood Online, and I've been playing his deck. It's good, man. Azalea, it turns out she's actually pretty good. So I'm probably going to see if I can get in touch with this guy and talk about Azalea a little bit. But that's the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Sorry it's 30 minutes long. But I hope to see you in the next one, and I hope you guys have a great day.